They built cities of 100,000 people while the pharaohs were still raising the first pyramids. Their streets ran in perfect grids. Their houses had toilets that flushed into the world's first sewer system. They controlled territory larger than the Egyptian and Mesopotamian empires combined. They left 4,000 inscriptions in a script no one, in 4,000 years, has ever read. And then, slowly, without a war, without a conqueror, they vanished. This is the lost civilization of the Indus Valley. In 1921, a low mound of earth in the Punjab broke open under the trowels of the Archaeological Survey of India. The Director General was John Marshall. The archaeologist on the ground at Harappa was Daya Ram Sani. A year later, at a second mound 600 kilometers to the south, in the province of Sindh, R.D. Banerjee began to dig at a place the locals called Mohenjo-Daro, the Mound of the Dead. What they found made no sense. The bricks were too uniform. The streets were too straight. The drains were too sophisticated. This was not a village. It was not even a town. It was a city, and it belonged to no civilization anyone had ever heard of. By 1924, Marshall went public. An entire civilization, contemporary with the Old Kingdom of Egypt and the city-states of Sumer, had existed across the river valleys of South Asia, and had been completely erased from human memory. It was larger than Egypt. It was larger than Mesopotamia. It was larger than both of them put together. And until that summer in 1921, no one knew it had ever existed. The Egyptians left us pyramids that never stopped being visible. The Sumerians left us cuneiform that never stopped being read. The people of the Indus left almost nothing, except their cities, lying just beneath the dust. Stand in the middle of Mohenjo-Daro and look down any street, and the street looks back at you in a straight line. The Indus cities were not improvised. They were planned. Main avenues running north to south. Side lanes branching east to west. Blocks of houses laid out on a grid that would not look out of place in modern Chicago, except this grid was surveyed and built around 2600 BCE. The bricks were standardized. Every brick. Across every city. A length to width to height ratio of 1 to 2 to 4, from Mohenjo-Daro in the north to Lot Howe on the coast, more than 1,000 kilometers away. No other Bronze Age civilization did this. The Egyptians built with whatever the local quarry produced. The Sumerians used mud brick in dozens of sizes. But the Indus Valley, somehow, across a region the size of Western Europe, agreed on a single specification. At the heart of Mohenjo-Daro stood the Great Bath. A rectangular pool, 12 meters long, sunk into the earth, lined with 2 layers of fired brick mortared with gypsum and sealed with a layer of bitumen to keep the water in. Steps descend at either end. A drain at the bottom carried the water out. Above the bath, rows of small rooms, possibly for changing, possibly for ritual. It is the oldest known public water tank in the world. And then there is the plumbing. Almost every excavated house at Mohenjo-Daro had its own bathing area, and many had their own toilet, emptying through a clay pipe in the wall, into a covered brick drain that ran beneath the public street. Soak pits caught the solids. The drains were inspected through removable capstones. Wastewater flowed out of the city. The Roman engineers who built the Cloaca Maxima would not be born for another 2,000 years. But what came next was even stranger than the engineering. Because the more the archaeologists dug, the more they realized what was missing. Go to Egypt of the same period, and you cannot avoid the kings. They stare at you from temple walls. They lie in painted coffins under mountains of stone. Their names are carved into every surface. Go to Sumer, and the kings are everywhere too. Standards of battle. Royal tombs at U are stacked with gold and servants killed to follow their masters into the next world. Go to Mohenjo-Daro. There is no royal tomb. There is no grand palace. There is no throne room. No carved relief of a king receiving tribute. No statue of a ruler 10 times the height of a man. The closest thing we have is a single soapstone bust the size of 2 fists, found in Mohenjo-Daro in 1927. Scholars called him the priest king, but we do not actually know what he was. There is no inscription. No throne. No crown. It is a name we invented because we needed one. There are no battle scenes. No depictions of soldiers in formation. No siege walls breached. The Indus cities had walls, but the walls seem to have held back floods more than enemies. In 4,000 square kilometers of excavation across more than 1,000 sites, there is no clear evidence of an army. There were granaries, vast ones. There was trade. Indus seals have been found as far away as Mesopotamia. There was clearly organization on a continental scale. But there is no clear ruler. No clear capital. No clear hierarchy. It is possible that the Indus Valley was governed by councils of elders, or by merchant guilds, or by priesthoods we cannot yet identify. We do not know. It is also possible, and this is what makes some archaeologists uneasy, that for 700 years, across 1.25 million square kilometers, the people of the Indus Valley simply organized themselves. Without a king. Without an army. To know for certain, we would need to read their writing. And no one can. About 4,000 objects have come out of the ground bearing the Indus script. Most of them are seals, small squares of carved steatite, designed to be pressed into wet clay. They show animals, almost always one creature per seal, a humped bull, a water buffalo, an elephant, a tiger, and most commonly of all, a long-horned creature that looks like a unicorn. Above the animal, almost always, a short line of writing. On one famous seal, a horned figure sits cross-legged, surrounded by animals, a tiger, an elephant, a buffalo. Some scholars have called him Proto-Shiva. That is, again, a name we invented. We have no idea who he is. The inscriptions are short. Usually fewer than 5 symbols. The longest known runs to only 17. For 100 years now, people have tried to decipher them. There have been dozens of attempts. Some have argued the script is an early form of Dravidian, related to Tamil. Others have argued it is an early form of Sanskrit. Others have proposed connections to Sumerian, to Elamite, to languages no one has heard of in 5,000 years. Every published decipherment has failed peer review. And in 2004, a group of scholars, Steve Farmer, Richard Sproat, and Michael Witzel, went further. They argued that the Indus symbols may not be a writing system at all. The inscriptions are too short. They do not repeat the way writing repeats. They may be emblems, family marks, religious symbols, meaningful, but not linguistic. That argument is contested. Many specialists believe the Indus script is writing. But the honest answer, after 4,000 years and a century of effort, is that we do not yet know what these signs are, let alone what they say. A civilization left us 4,000 messages. And we still cannot hear them speak. Around 1900 BCE, the cities of the Indus began to empty. It did not happen overnight. It happened across generations. For a long time, scholars assumed there must have been a conquest. The traditional story spoke of Aryan invaders sweeping down from the northwest with horses and chariots, sacking the cities. That theory, in the form of an Aryan invasion, has now been largely set aside. The skeletons at Mohenjo-Daro do not show evidence of a massacre. The cities were not burned. There are no piles of weapons. What seems to have happened is slower, and quieter, and in some ways more disturbing. In 2012, a team of geoscientists led by Liviu Giason published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. They mapped the ancient rivers of the Indus Plain, including the now dry Gagar-Hakra system, which some identify with the Sarasvati of later Hindu memory. They found that the rivers had shifted. Some had stopped flooding the floodplains the cities depended on. The summer monsoons that fed those rivers had been weakening for centuries. The Indus cities were built on a hydraulic miracle. When the water moved, the miracle moved with it. The people of the Indus did not disappear. They dispersed. They moved east, into the Ganges plain. They moved south, into peninsular India. They moved into smaller villages. They kept their cotton, their wheat, their bullock carts, their bangles. Their descendants are still here. They are the people of South Asia. The genetic, agricultural, and cultural threads run unbroken from Mohenjo-Daro to the present. What was lost was not the people. What was lost was the city. The grid. The great bath. The standardized brick. The seal. The script. A civilization larger than Egypt and Sumer combined. Cities of 100,000. Plumbing the Romans would have envied. A script we still cannot read. A collapse without a conqueror. The mound of the dead is still there, in the dry plain of Sind. The wind still moves through its streets. If this changed how you see the ancient world, subscribe. Untold Ages reconstructs a forgotten